Today we're doing quadratic equations day 2, and your learning goal is for you to be able to solve quadratic equations by using the square root property and by completing the square. So first we're going to start with the square root property. Okay, so here's our first example. What you want to do is to get the x squared by itself. And you move the 15 over, divide by 3. So you want to get here first before you square root both sides. And remember that when you square root both sides, your answer will be plus and minus. And since 5 is not a perfect square, then you have to leave it under the square root. Then that's it. Okay, here's another example. So I'm going to move the 25 over first. And I'm going to divide by 9. And I'm going to square root both sides. And since these are perfect squares, and the negative represents, you want to bring out the negative, So it'll be like this, which in turn is plus and minus 5i over square root of 3. Or you can write it like 5/3 I. And then you're done. Now, let's say we're going to get a little bit more difficult. Let's say you had a problem like this. Well, there's nothing in front of it, so we can go ahead. This is example 3, So I'm going to square root both sides. I'm going to get plus and minus 6. And then I'm going to move the 3 over. And so I'm going to get two answers. One of my answers is 3 plus 6, which is 9, and 3 minus 6, which is negative 3. Okay? And then if it can't square root, if you had one like this, and you square root both sides, you're just going to break down to 27 to 3 radical 3. Then I'm going to subtract the 8 and divide by 2. And 2 can't divide both of those terms, so you're just going to leave your answer. You can split it up. Negative 8 over 2 is negative 4. Plus or minus 3 square root of 3 over 2. And we are done with that one. Okay, the next method is called completing a square. And first we're going to just practice doing just that. Completing these squares. So to complete the square, you take half of this number and square it. So half of 8, so basically this is what you're doing. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. Even if it is a number that can't be. So you have negative 7 over 2. And then if you square it, you're going to get 49 over 4. And here, if you do 3/5, half of 3/5 would be 3/10, because you're doing 3/5 times a half. So that's 3/10 squared. That's 9 over 100. So that's how you complete the square. So we're going to use this method to help us solve quadratic equations. All right, so let's say we had this problem. Okay. Does 4 complete the square for 6? No, it doesn't. So what we're going to do is move it to the other side. And we're going to put the correct number there. The correct number would be negative 6 over 2 squared. Negative 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. But whatever you do to the right, you have to do to the left. That way, this can become a perfect square binomial. That means you factor it. 2x minus 3 squared equals 5. So from here, you're back to solving by square root. So I'm going to square root both sides. 5 is not a perfect square, so I'm going to leave it under the square root. And then that's as far as you can go. Say you had a problem like this. Well, the first thing we're going to have to do is get rid of the leading coefficient, because it always has to be 1. Okay, so does 4/9, negative 4/9 complete the square for negative 2/3? No, it doesn't. So I'm going to move it over and put the correct number. So I'm going to do negative 2/3 times a half, and then I'm going to square it. That will give me negative 1/3, and if I square it, I get 1/9. Then, now I can factor this to x minus 1/3 squared. And this number will always go here. Then I'm going to square root both sides. Now the 5 is not a perfect square, but 9 is. So I'm going to square root that. And then I'm just going to move the 1/3 over. And then that's as far as we can go. Now if it does come out to be a perfect square, you actually have to work it out. But if it doesn't, then you leave it like that. And that's it.